des bohèmes, il n'a jamais, jamais connu des lois. Si tout n'aimait, mais toi je t'aimais, si je te prends regard à toi, si tout n'aimait.
Well, folks, welcome back to day 2 of the maple syrup operation here. I was planning on showing my equipment yesterday, but I ran out of time. I did get all 11 taps in, so that is good. I took a quick look at the taps this morning. Temperatures are supposed to get into the upper 30s, if not the low 40s. Bright sunny day, so I think today is going to be a really good day in terms of sap flow. Really, the focal point of my operation is to manufacture maple syrup for myself, friends, and family while limiting, if not eliminating, the contact between the syrup and sap and plastic. I'm sure many of you are well aware that microplastics are becoming a real issue. You know, everything is now BPA free, but if you read some of the newer studies, that doesn't mean that plastic is safe. There's other chemicals in, BPA free plastic that still leaches into our foods and beverages. So I've been making a huge push to rid myself from the use of plastics. However, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm making the push. So I just want to reiterate that that is the focal point of my operation. Now, all the commercial operations, they use plastic tubing, they use vacuum lines, plastic taps, and I get it. In order to maintain profitability, you're going to have to use those plastic lines, but I think that's one of the things that's going to make my operation special is not having plastics in my system or very little plastic. With that being said, there's one area that my operation still needs improvement, and that is sap storage. Ideally, I'd like to get a nice 55-gallon drum, 3 or 4 stainless steel barrel to store my sap in. However, those of you that have researched those barrels will know that they cost upwards of $700–800 brand new. I've been looking at used ones, but all the used ones seem to have had some type of chemical storage in them, so that's not really a feasible option. So that's something I'm looking to upgrade to in the future. Now for this year, unfortunately, I'm just going to have to make do with 5-gallon water jugs. I had 4 around the house, and I ended up picking an additional 4 on Facebook Marketplace for free. I've sanitized those already, but that is really the only plastic contact that the sap and or syrup is going to have, aside from the caps on the top of the glass bottles. So with that being said, let's start going over my equipment. So as mentioned a moment ago, I plan to store my sap until it's boiled down in those 5-gallon water jugs. Now I'm collecting my sap, as you've seen earlier in this video, in those aluminum 2-gallon sap collection buckets that hang on the side of the tree. So here's my plan. I purchased this stainless steel funnel. It's like a 1-inch wide funnel here. The top of the funnel is probably 4 inches, 5 inches wide. And it also has this handy screen. So this is fantastic. So what I plan to do is lug around one of those 5-gallon jugs, probably tie a rope around my body, put this funnel in the top of the jug, and then I'll pour those aluminum buckets in here. And that'll filter the sap through this stainless steel filter, and the sap, of course, will flow down into the bucket. Now, something else I purchased are these reusable silicone caps. Ensure that no dust or debris gets into the jugs when not in use. And additionally, if I'm hauling a jug around the yard, as it's bouncing on my person, I'm not spilling any drops. So I thought this was a pretty cool purchase. These are silicone, they're not plastic. I don't think silicone is terrific either, but I'm making do with what I was able to afford this year. Next, the sap is going to have to be boiled down. And it's really important that you pay attention to the sugar concentration in the sap. Of course, I'm still learning as I go here, but a tool you're going to need to identify the sugar percentage in the sap as you boil it down is something called a hydrometer. So I purchased a hydrometer. These are fairly cheap. I think this was like $22. So we have a stainless steel container. You would fill this up with sap and then drop this hydrometer in here slowly. And depending how high or low it sits, that will tell you the sugar concentration of the sap. And there's instructions here, so I have a little bit more to learn about this and how to use it, but I figure I'm going to make another video in which we really focus on boiling down the sap and final production, and that's when you'll see that used more. Now, after we boil down the sap outside on my homemade evaporator, we're gonna have to bring it inside to do the final boil to ensure everything remains as sanitary as possible, but also I can closely watch everything and better control the heat as opposed to trying to control the heat over the outdoor wood boiler or evaporator. So after I get the sap close, I'm gonna filter it with these. This is a sugar making filter kit. There's 3 filters in here. So there's one heavy duty 1-quart synthetic filter, and there's 2 1-quart lightweight pre-filters. So, once we get that sap close, we're gonna run it through all 3 filters, I believe. So I got one of these to hold the filters. A lot of guys just make their own. I believe there's holes in these filters, so in theory you could throw 2 dowels through the filters and just build some type of stand to hold it upright. But I got the filter holder just because I thought it'd make sense. Now let's move on to what I purchased for the final boiling operation that's going to take place inside when we're going to finish off the syrup, as I believe they call it. So I purchased a thermometer with a long lead, and I'm probably going to install this into my stainless steel pot on the stove just to watch the temperatures. I forget what they say. I think it needs to get maybe 6 degrees above boiling temperature, but your boiling temperature will vary based on your elevation. So we're going to use this thermometer in conjunction with the hydrometer over here during the final boiling process to get it where it needs to be in terms of sugar concentration. So after we get it to where it needs to be, we're going to have to jar it. So I purchased these glass jars on Amazon. These are 12-quart jugs, glass. They do have plastic lids, but for me it was really important to use glass containers as opposed to plastic. So these are going to be my main storage containers for my family, but I'm going to want to give a lot of these out as gifts. So I purchased these, I think these are 4-quart canning jars. So, the gift for friends, probably going to be these 4-quart canning jars, of course, because this stuff is pretty freaking valuable. And as for pouring the sap into those containers, I just have a smaller stainless steel funnel, so the spout will fit right in the jars, and things will be good. Now, as for sanitizing these jars, that's a question I have. I think I'm going to throw mine in the oven and sanitize them with heat. Some people boil them, some people throw them in the dishwasher, some people don't even sanitize their jars. So I'm really not sure what the best thing to do is. I think I'm going to go the oven route, but if anybody else has any experience out there, please let me know what you think and what you're doing. So I think that's pretty much going to conclude this video. Next video, you're likely going to see me evaporating the sap and working on a final boil. I'd imagine I'll probably have to do a couple different runs, but ideally I'm looking for 2.5 gallons of syrup. If I get 2 gallons, I'd be extremely happy. 2.5 is the goal. Any more than that would just be fantastic. So that's going to conclude today's video. I'd like to thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts, and as always, I will catch you on the next one.